Hi, thank you so much for being here. It's so great to see your face. Thank you for being on. It's really it's a schus to get together with ladies who prioritize emuna. Here, Parshas Kisavai el haaretz. When you come to the land, um I feel that I have such a privilege living in the Holy Land. And sometimes, sometimes we have better days and sometimes we have worse days. But sometimes even on a worse day, I can look around and say, I live in Eretz Yisrael. I live in the Holy Land that Moshe Rabbeinu davened so many tefillahs to be able to come in and wasn't allowed to come in. And who am I? But Baruch Hashem, I'm allowed to be in Eretz Yisrael, and I'm here in Eretz Yisrael. And we as a generation are zeicha to be able to step on a plane and come to Eretz Yisrael. I think that it's probably the rare Jewish person around the world that I'm not a Jewish, the rare Torah observant person who has never been to Eretz Yisrael. I'm sure there's still many, unfortunately, unaffiliated and tinoikus shel nishba, children who never grew up with any Jewish education, who don't know what it's like to be here. But um, but the holiness of the land, Baruch Hashem, is accessible to us all, and this is a tremendous gift that Kadosh Baruch has given us in our generation. And here we are. We have a mitzvah when we come into Eretz Yisrael, a mitzvah of bringing bikurim, and that's what we're going to be dedicating today's class to, talking about what's the emuna perspective. What is the purpose of the mitzvah of bikurim? So this is fascinating. The purpose Reb Asher brings down, as brought down from other Sfarim. Hi, everybody who's coming on in. Great to see everyone. The purpose of the mitzvah of Bikurim is to curb our physical desires, to help us become less materialistic and help us to become more spiritual, and to help us to become more spiritually aspiring, that our goals and our aspirations will be more spiritual. This is the purpose of our existence. What is emuna? Emuna is actually the experience of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. That's what the Pesesny Rebbe says, that it is a similar experience to Nevuah, whereas prophecy is a communication from Hashem. Emuna is the experience of Hashem, is the attachment to Hashem, and a prophet only receives Nevuah if Hashem decides to open up that communication. The Emunah, our faith in Hashem, is that experience of a Kadosh Baruch Hu that would lead to prophecy if a Kadosh Baruch Hu would decide to bestow that upon the person. The Pesesny Rebbe says that just as a person can only receive nevuah when they are besimcha, similarly, a person can only sense their emunah when a person is besimcha. And so that's one of the reasons why it's so important for us to value. Hi, great to see you on. Love to see your face. Hi. That's why it's so important that we value what simcha means in our lives. Simcha doesn't mean hoilerless, just dancing or any kind of doing silly things. But simcha means attachment to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It means knowing that there's a purpose in everything. It means having a sense of meaning and growing. And without all of those things, without knowing that we're here in this world to attach to a Kadosh Baruch Hu and that there's a meaning for everything, a person can't have simcha. But a person also then cannot sense their emuna. So emuna is a spiritual sensing. And we have to be spiritual people. We have to be spiritual creatures in order to sense our emuna. It is a spiritual sensing. And so the Nesiv Shalom is very clear that you cannot be materialistic and spiritual at the same time. You have to choose. Now, we can elevate the material, right? What it means is, what is your end goal? Is your end goal to use spiritual actions in order to gain greater materialism? Or is your goal to use materialism to gain spirituality? It doesn't mean that we're supposed to live without any materialism. Of course, we're supposed to eat. And the Gemara itself, Chazal teaches that a beautiful home and beautiful possessions and a beautiful wife. So all of these things open up our mind. When we feel good about ourselves, we're more open to spirituality. And the imahais were had inner beauty that was matched with their external beauty. There is appropriate place for materialism in the Jewish framework, but it's about what's the end goal. You can't have two end goals. You can't be committed to both materialism and spirituality. That's the choice. Do we use materialism as an end goal for spirituality, for sensing our emunah and our faith in Hashem, or the other way around? Is our end goal really materialism, and we're using our spiritual activities? We're learning, we're davening, we're doing mitzvahs so that we can get more materialism. Maybe we're trying to get more materialism from Hashem, or maybe we're trying to get more materialism by impressing other people so that they'll pay us more, so we'll have more materialism. But our way of doing it is looking from. Okay, there are many different ways to, act that out, and we each have to ask ourselves, what is my end goal? Am I trying to become more spiritual? Or am I trying to actually gain more materialism, more material things? And that's a question that we can each ask ourselves. And the parsha is teaching us that our goal as Yidden in this world is to become more spiritual and to try to minimize the material, if we can do that. So when a person comes, this is how we're supposed to work, the mitzvah of Bikurim. A person comes from his little town or his city, and he traipses throughout the land until he comes with his bag of pomegranates. Sorry, let me just. Everyone, try and remember to. Everyone's supposed to be muted when they come in, but if you have unmuted, just remember to please mute yourself. Okay, because so there shouldn't be some background noise coming on. Thank you, Tiskanimisses, everybody. Just keep on muted. So a person would gather together his basket of pomegranates, and he would take his beautiful bunches of grapes, and off he would go, and he would go through the land, and he would come up to Yerushalayim. And in Yerushalayim, at the time of the Beis Hamikdash, the Kohanim were busy in their avodas Hashem, and wherever you went, there was the sense of spiritual elevation. There was learning. There were people engrossed in learning Torah. The Levim were teaching Torah. There was the song, and there was the atmosphere of bringing korbanos. There was a tremendously spiritually alive excitement, a sense of wow, what does it mean to be so attached to Kadosh Baruch Hu? There was a tremendous spiritual inspiration from going to the Beis Hamikdash. And this is why we know that Devorah the prophet was called Eishes Lapidos. Chazal teach us that Devorah the prophetess was married to a relatively simple person. She herself was a woman of tremendous stature. She was a judge and a prophet. And wait, maybe I'm mixing up Devorah the prophet and Devorah the judge. Devorah the judge, okay. Devorah the judge had her husband was lapidot, which meant the flames. She would make wicks, and she wanted him to elevate himself. She wanted him to become more spiritually inspired, and she understood that the place to become spiritually inspired was the Beis Hamikdash. So she would spin wicks and give them to her husband, hoping that when he would go to the Beis Hamikdash and bring up those wicks, that he would catch some of the spiritual excitement that could be sensed at the Beis Hamikdash, and that he would become more of a spiritually attuned individual. And based on the parsha, based on this mitzvah, that this is part of the reason of the mitzvah, is that through our connection with Talmidei Chachamim, through our connection with Ovdei Hashem, we will become more spiritual. And then we will become more aroused to learn more, to understand more, to have more of a more intention as we fulfill the mitzvah. We don't have to know everything about all the mitzvahs that we do, but if we've learned halacha, if we know Jewish law, if we understand more about the mitzvahs, especially as they relate to us, more about hadlakas neiros, more about hafrashas challah, the mitzvahs of lighting candles, the mitzvahs of taking challah, the more we learn about the mitzvahs that apply to us, and the more that we learn about the halachas of how to keep Shabbos, we're going to be more connected to the mitzvah. We become more spiritually refined people. And fascinatingly, I heard Rabbi Shais Taub give over a fascinating insight. He said sometimes spiritually attuned people, some people who are very compassionate and empathetic, often find themselves very spiritually attuned and often have a hard time really at peace being in their bodies. They even have a hard time with the sense of being in this world. They sometimes feel like strangers in this world. And he says, our job then is to truly embody the mitzvahs, to do the mitzvahs with that sense of connection, that through this mitzvah, I'm connecting body and soul. I'm actually acting as this kind of connective piece that takes the spiritual and puts it into the material. And again, that is the purpose of our experience, the purpose of being in this world. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and again, it's one of the mysteries of the world that we will never understand as long as we live in this world, is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, that he should have it dwelling down here in this existence. Whatever that means. But somehow this physical world is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted us to dwell in. And the Chaim says that who is more beloved to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? There are levels of who is beloved to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. On one level is the souls of the tzaddikim that are the first level is the angels that serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and they bring HaKadosh Baruch Hu nachas and pleasure. Above the angels are the souls of the greatest tzaddikim and tzidkanios in the next world. They are still giving HaKadosh Baruch Hu nachas. They're still before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and in some way they're still giving HaKadosh Baruch Hu nachas. But even more than that are the souls of Klal Yisrael in this world, shehem besoich habasar, that they are in the flesh. This is the language of what the Ar Chaim says. That as long as our soul is in the flesh and we serve a Kadosh Baruch Hu in the flesh, somehow we have the capacity to be here and do a mitzvah, to make a bracha, to light a candle. What are we doing already? We're taking a match. We're, the beginning of creation, they were able to light fires. What's the big deal lighting a fire? But these fires, the fires that we light, that was given to Jewish women as a mitzvah throughout the ages. We light the fire, we light the Heilige Shabbos lights, we light the Heilige Yontif lights, and we're going into Be'ez Hashem Suri in the month of Tishrei, where we're going to light so many candles. If we learn a little bit more about the mitzvah, if we fulfill that mitzvah with a little bit more awareness and understanding, the joy that we can experience. We are spiritual creatures having a physical experience. And for those of us that may struggle with this, what is this world all about anyway? It's about doing these mitzvahs. And when we light the candle, we can appreciate this little act that I just did. It might appear to be so physical and so meaningless, and yet HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given us the means for infusing our physical existence with spirituality. That's what our whole existence is about. And even if a person is actually very busy all day long. Let's say you've got a shetelmacher where she's busy all day helping women with their shetels, busy helping women look beautiful. We might think, what a materialistic kind of an endeavor, and yet we know that Hakadosh Baruch Hu himself made Chava beautiful before he brought her to Adam Harishon, before their marriage on the first day of the creation of Chava. And so involving ourselves in the material world is not a contradiction to being spiritual. Again, it just depends on what is the focus. And even somebody who apparently is involved in materialistic pursuits, but if it's for the purpose, if it's for the sake of a kindness, for the sake of a mitzvah, for the sake of an ultimate spiritual pursuit, the entire endeavor becomes spiritual. In fact, Rav Asher Frein taught that if a person does a favor with his car, with her or her car, okay, we do a favor with a material object, he not only elevates the car itself and then infuses the car with spiritual power, but he actually creates a tikkun, a spiritual rectification, whatever that means. I don't know what it means, but I'm saying the words because just so we can understand some minuscule element of it. But he creates a spiritual rectification for everybody that was involved in the creation of that car. Okay, the person who planned the car, the person who created the paint for the car, the person who put the chairs in the back of the car, the person who shipped the car, everybody who was involved in the shipping, everyone who was involved in the sale and the resale, the person who created the security system and the sound system, whatever it is. By doing a favor with a car, we create a tikkun potentially for a number of 100 people with one favor. So this is a spiritual reflection on how we live our lives down in this world. But that's how we're supposed to live our lives, with spiritual glasses on. And sometimes we are, for no fault of our own, but we just get involved in the materialism of this world. And Rav Yitzchak Kerzner, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, who passed away from cancer years ago, an incredible tzaddik and teacher. When he was already suffering a lot of pain towards the end of his life, he gave a shir about what suffering means. What's the point of suffering? Why do we suffer? And he said that part of the reason why we suffer in this world is to release the hold of the material upon ourselves. We don't like suffering. Okay, none of us would sign up for a 6-week course of suffering. We just wouldn't do that. It hurts. It's painful. If I would tell you the kind of human misery that people told me about just this week, it's the agony and the pain, the families ripped apart because of the dysfunction of family members, and the kinds of anxiety and stress and fear and that people are managing all around the world, watching their children suffering and watching their parents suffering. And the human misery is, unfortunately, knows no boundaries, and it's spread all around the world. There's no one reason that we could give for our suffering, but Rav Yitzchak Kerzner's lesson stuck with me and makes a lot of sense, unfortunately. Unfortunately, because it's so painful. But when a person is going through any kind of challenge, whether it's a challenge, a physical, painful challenge, meaning their physical body, whether it's watching another person who they love suffer, whether it's going through materialistic challenges, money is a big challenge for so many people. Finding a place to live, so many people have challenged. Dealing with all kinds of fallout. There's so many ways, whether we're talking about someone who doesn't have nachas from their children, or someone that doesn't have children, someone who's not married. Okay, there's so many ways to be suffering in this world. And if we understand that one of the reasons, and therefore one of the ways we can grow from our challenge is if it can help us to become more spiritual, if it can help to elevate us in some way, and in some way loosen the hold the physical world has. A person who is physically challenged has to decide it must be my soul that is more important than my physical body. If my body is in some way limited like this, then who am I? Am I my physical limitation or am I my soul? We're forced into that conversation. If a person is challenged financially, then again, they don't have the capacity to spend on whatever they would like to, or even to contribute the way that they would like to. And again, they're forced into thinking about, so what's my spiritual contribution then? If I cannot use the material world the way that I would like to. If a person finds themselves in a similar situation as Sarah Schnera, Aleh Shalom, Zecher Tzedekis Livrocha, who did not have children in this world, who was a divorcee. She married again later in her life, but who had tremendous then interpersonal challenge. Certainly her dream was to build a beautiful Torah home and was never given that gift, although she brought really every Jewish woman alive today who learns who or has contact with the Beis Yaakov system is her child. But she was an incredibly spiritual woman who didn't have the blessing of raising her own children or building her own Bayis Ne'eman B'Yisrael in the normal understanding, the way that we would think, where there's a Shabbos table and a husband. She had Shabboses with her Talmidos. This was holy. This was beautiful, and she inspired the generations that came after her. Was it painful? We have to understand that probably it was. Did it contribute to the tremendous spirituality that she was known for? Certainly. And so all of these different challenges push us to find this spiritual within ourselves. And if a person says, I've spent my whole life trying to be spiritual, then the answer is, and yet there's still no end. The Pesnetzner Rebbe, Hashem Yinkom Damoy, wrote in Chovas Talmidim, I believe, he didn't write it there. This was in a drasha that he gave in Warsaw during the Second World War. And he said that Emunah is the experience of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And just as then HaKadosh Baruch Hu is endless, so Emunah is endless. There is no limit, because Emunah is the sensing of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, it's a spiritual sensing. It's an awareness. I know there's a Ribono Shel Olam. You don't have to tell me. I've seen so many miracles in my life. I've seen the Yad Hashem so clearly that it couldn't have been a coincidence. I know the Ribono Shel Olam. That's Emunah. It's the sense that there is a Ribono Shel Olam with me, even though I can't see him, but I feel and experience and witness him in my life. That Emunah has no limit, because the HaKadosh Baruch Hu has no limit. And so if we have some element of suffering in our lives still, it's because we can have more emunah in our lives. We can become more spiritual. And again, we wouldn't sign up for this. We would, if somebody was offering a 20-week course, the greatest course in suffering you could ever have, none of us would be running to sign up for such a course, right? And yet, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given free of charge these life courses in suffering. And every one of us, I think, who has ever been through any kind of these sufferings in our lives, we would look back and we would say, we have become more spiritual through this. We have grown in our emunah, because that's what we've tried to do. We've put in the effort that we could, and we've attempted, and we would probably say that we have succeeded, at least in growing in some emunah, as the verse in Pirkei Avos says, Yogata umotzata tamim. The Torah's Avos of Slonim says on that Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, that if you seek, you will find. If someone says, I sought and I found, you can believe him. That's the simple meaning of the verse. of the Mishnah. The Torah's Avos says that Yogata, if you put effort in to grow your emunah, matzata timing, you're going to find that you will become a greater maimin. You're going to believe more from putting effort in. Meaning, you could put effort in other areas. You could try and dig for gold, and you might not find it. But if you dig for emunah, you're going to find it. You're not going to put effort into growing your emunah and come out empty-handed. But every person, if you put effort in, is going to come out, because we have, the Sfas Emes says, we have emunah in our souls, in potential, a Yerusha that we received from the Avos of the Imahos Akadoshim, that Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah, they had emunah, and in the schus of the Avos, in the merit of the forefathers and the mothers, we have as our spiritual inheritance the capacity to believe in a Kadosh Baruch Hu. It is in potential in every single Jewish soul. All we have to do is, add water, and it will come out. What's the water? It's just like it's H2O. Water has some components. So some of the components are suffering and the effort that goes into finding the emunah. Those are the components. Is trying, add some suffering, add some gratitude. All the different elements that go into what grows our emunah. What are the elements that help us to actualize the emunah? But the potential is there inside every single one of us. And so if we try, we will succeed, says the Torah's Avos Islam. And so, if a person has contact, again, the mitzvah of Bikurim, for those that have joined us just recently, and thank you so much for being here. It's so beautiful to be a part of a community dedicated to growing our emunah, be'ezah Hashem, altogether. The mitzvah of Bikurim is a mitzvah that Rabosh is teaching us. Its purpose, in part, is to grow us spiritually, to minimize our attachment to the materialism of the world, and to increase our capacity for spirituality through coming up to the holy city of Yerushalayim, as the members of the household will bring their fruits, their first fruit offering, and they would be exposed to the avodas Hashem, to the service of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, the passionate serving of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and the learning of the Torah that was taking place with such enthusiasm in Yerushalayim Ir Kodesh. And even if the person found themselves unable to dedicate themselves to the learning of the Torah, but they would give of themselves, they would support Talmidei Chachamim more generously. Maybe they would be able to send their children off to go and learn Torah more graciously, so that they could have a more direct connection with those who learn Torah. The Orach Chaim HaKadosh, in his words on the Parsha, "V'samachta b'kol hatoiv," and you should rejoice in all the good that Hashem has given to you, which is said about the fruits, the first fruits that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given in this mitzvah of Bikurim. And on the words, he's basing himself, the Orach Chaim bases himself on the words of Chazal that they say, Ein toiv ela Torah. The only real good in the world is Torah. That you're bringing up the Bikurim, but now rejoice with the Torah that you are then experiencing in Yerushalayim Ir Kodesh. That was the basis of these exceptionally sweet words of the Orach Chaim. You might even have heard the song that has been composed, beautiful niggin that was composed on these words. I'll share the words. I'll maybe try and hum the niggin. If you never heard it, we'll try and find it. She'im b'nei adam margishim b'metikus v'arevus tiv haTorah. That if people would feel the sweetness and the pleasantness of the goodness of the Torah, hey mishtagim, they would go out of their minds from craziness, umislatim achareha, and they would passionately run after the Torah. V'lo yechshav beinehem meloi olam kesef v'zav me'uma, and the whole world filled with silver and gold would not be in their eyes considered to anything compared to the Torah. Ki ha-Torah koleles kol ha-tovos shebe'olam. because the Torah includes every good that's in the world. Anyone knows the song? Em bnei adam margishim b'mesikis v'yarevis. Anyone know? You can sing along with me. B'mesikis v'yarevis tivatoira. I'm mishtagim. I'm not very good at singing this. Umislatim achareho. Umislatim achareho. Yeah, anyone know the song? I won't sing the whole thing, but if you've ever heard a bit of this niggin, it's a beautiful song that is based on the words of the Orach Chaim HaKadosh. This beautiful, sweet words of the Orach Chaim. If we would know, right? So beautiful. If we would know the sweetness and how pleasant was the Torah, if we would know, we would be going out of our minds with passion for the love of the Torah, and we would not even think about money or gold or silver or any physical possessions compared to the value that the Torah would have for us. That's the ultimate spiritual approach to life. And this is how we can really measure ourselves. How do we value the Torah and its mitzvahs? And I know that of course, I have so much to grow in this area. And it's talking about it, Be'ez Hashem, will just help us to raise ourselves up and become more spiritual. And when a person came to Yerushalayim Ir Kodesh to bring his bikurim, and these were the fruits of his physical work. A farmer had to work really, really hard. He constantly had to look after his trees and his vineyard, and he had to watch the fruits and guard it from physical attacks and from animals, and and make sure that the rain was going to. He had to constantly daven for rain and maybe store the rain and make sure that he kept his land. There was a tremendous amount of physical investment. And here he's coming and he's bringing himself. He's bringing himself as he comes close to Yerushalayim. Because there in Yerushalayim, he would actually be able to find himself. He'd be able to find his spiritual self. He'd be able to receive the influence of Klal Yisrael there in Yerushalayim. And he would find his purpose, the spiritual purpose for which he came into this world. That is Torah and Avodas Hashem. And each one of us has a letter in the Torah, as we discussed last week, that is in some way, every single man, woman, and child has a letter in the Torah that is our spiritual connection. And it is our Avodas Hashem to connect to some aspect of Torah and mitzvahs. And Be'ez Hashem, each one of us will be zeicha to influence, whether it's our own children or whether like Sarah Shnera, whether to teach and influence others, Be'ez Hashem, to give over of whatever Torah that we have, whatever excitement or enthusiasm we have for a particular mitzvah, to be able to share that with others in Klal Yisrael. Because we are created to be a community, we're created to receive and give influence. And now that we don't have a Beis HaMikdash, tragically, we don't have a place where there is a concentration here in Yerushalayim of Ovdei Hashem, the Kohanim, bringing the Korbanos and the Leviim, teaching Torah and singing, and all Klal Yisrael coming and gathering at one time. We don't have that in-gathering and that powerful experience that there was nothing like it in those times. We don't have that kind of connection. We don't have a place where people can bring their bikurim. Now, Chazal teach us, so bring a gift to a Talmid Chacham. And if you do, it's as if we brought bikurim. If we support our local Talmidei Chachamim, Maybe it's your son. Maybe it's your brother. Maybe it's your son-in-law. Maybe it's your neighbor. Maybe it's your local kollel, whatever it is. When we support Talmud Torah, it's as if we've brought the Bikurim. It's our statement of where our value is. It's our statement of that we understand that the Siyata Dishmaya, we are spiritual creatures put here for spiritual purposes. And the Torah is the source of all spiritual goodness. And there's nothing missing in the Torah. And hafachba, kolboy, every single element of goodness and pleasure and whatever we want, it's in the Torah. And Rabashta finishes by saying that the act of bringing any kind of a gift to a Talmud Chacham brings the person who gives that gift to an elevated awareness of what it means to learn Torah. The very act of supporting Torah affects us. We are influenced by our deeds. That's one of the fundamentals of the Sefer Chinuch. Adam nif'al lefi pu'uloisav. One of the reasons for the mitzvahs that's given by not the reasons, but one of the Tamei mitzvahs. One of the we can have a taste of what the mitzvah can do for us from the Sefer Chinuch is that we are affected by our deeds, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu instructs us through the Torah to understand that all of the Torah and mitzvahs is to affect how the kind of person that we become. So when we give any kind of gift, whether it's food, whether it's clothing, whether it's helping the local Talmud Chacham with babysitting, whatever it is, or financially, whatever we are able to share with the local Talmud Chacham, when we do that, we gain an appreciation of Torah. We are inspired ourselves to connect more deeply to the Torah and to minimize our attachment to the materialistic world. And to minimize the distance between us, to draw closer to the Talmidei Chachamim that are around us. And therefore we fulfill the purpose, just as the mitzvah of Bikurim in its times. May we be zoiche to fulfill it once again, Be'ez Hashem, with the building of the Beis HaMikdash, when each one of us will live and be able to spend time with our family and friends underneath our own fig trees and our own date palms, and we'll be able to bring the Bikurim in those times. Let me just see what you're saying in the chat. I saw Linda put a little question there, which was so cute. What did you say?
I just want to say thank you.
Oh, thank you so
much.
Good
Shabbos.
Lovely to see you. Good Shabbos. Linda says, am I a body with a soul or a soul with a body? How do I see myself? Exactly. That's exactly the question, right? To see ourselves as a soul inside a body, and that our goal here is not to minimize the body, but to elevate the body, to understand that it's a holy body when it is used for the holy mitzvahs that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given to us. And so it's not to treat the body with a sense of sort of despising the body and its needs, but to rather use for the purpose of building connection to the spirituality. Okay, that's a great question. What is the difference between Emunah and Bitachon? Yes. Okay, so the Ramban answers that question. He says, Emunah is the tree. Thank you. I'm so glad that you appreciated that share. Thank you so much for being here. Emunah is the tree, and Bitachon is the fruit. So just as you can have a tree without fruit, you cannot have fruit without a tree. So you can have Emunah without having bitachon, but you cannot have bitachon without emunah. So what is emunah? Emunah means the faith in Hashem. It means the things that we have to believe about Hashem in order to be able to trust him. It's what we believe about Hashem to be true. I believe he loves me. I believe he is all powerful. I believe that nothing can influence HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I believe that he was, is, and always will be. The 13 statements of the Rambam, the Ikarim of Emunah, these are the foundation of faith. And the Chovos HaLevavos brings down, I believe, another seven principles of faith of what we have to believe in Hashem in order to be able to trust Him. That He's benevolent and that more than anyone else loves me, He loves me. These are all elements of emunah, of faith. Once I believe that Hashem loves me and no one can influence Him and He is all powerful and He does good and wants to do good. Once I believe all of these things, then I could trust Him that He will take good care of me. And that if there's something in my life that is painful, I could trust that it's for a reason. So, for example, if you have a very, very dear friend who you've turned to many, many times, and every time she came through for you and she supported you and she never let you down, and she was understanding and compassionate. If you ask her to do you a favor and she says, I can't do it, you would realize that it's not because she doesn't like you, it's not because she's untrustworthy, but you still believe that she's a good person and you still believe in your relationship, you still believe in the friendship. But you realize that for whatever reason, she cannot do it now, right? You won't take it personally. And so when we know that Hashem loves us and that the entire world was created for us and that Hashem is good and that His goodness is forever and that there's a purpose to everything, then even when we daven for something, we ask for something, we hope for something, after the fact, if we see that it didn't change, just as David HaMelech, he had a child with Bathsheba, and that child became ill, and it was actually prophesied that he would lose that child, but he didn't give up. He davened and davened and davened and davened and davened, and we know David HaMelech had tremendous emunah and betachan in the Kodesh Baruch Hu, and he trusted Hashem, and we're talking about David HaMelech after Goliath, after Goliath, and after he'd already experienced so many miracles from Hashem. And after all of that, here he is. He's the king, and his son became sick, and he davened and davened, and he didn't eat, and he didn't sleep. He cried and cried to Hashem, and as soon as the child passed away, he asked for food to be brought to him, and he put away the tefillah for the moment, and his servants asked why. Now, now that the child has died, when we would imagine you to be filled with grief, now you're eating. And David HaMelech said, until the moment when the judgment came down, I thought I could still change it, but now I receive with love what a Kadosh Baruch Hu has decided, and so now I'm going to continue my life. The emunah and the faith that David had in the goodness of Hashem and in the meaning of everything that happens and in the relationship that is never going to be severed, all of that allowed him to trust that if this is what Hashem decided, I can trust that it's for my good and that in some way, at some point, I will understand more about this. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I have a different question that I was thinking of when you were talking. You know how there's a coincidence and then you're like a miracle and you're like, wow, Hashem, like, wow. Aren't we supposed to kind of think it's all that way, even though it's illuminated for us at that moment?
Yes,
And in other words,
exactly.
it's just a way of saying I'm here, but I'm here even when you're not really feeling those miracles. Do you hear what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah. So you're not even really asking a question, but you're sharing a
Yeah.
profound point is that, yes, we do get those flashes of inspiration where we realize this is Yad Hashem and it couldn't have happened without there being a creator here. And would it be like I would so wish that I could see and feel that kind of hashgacha pratis when I'm hurting about something, right? When I really want it to be different, and it's hard, but that's right. That's why we're here, and that's the work of Emuna is to know that it's not always going to be so clear to us, and sometimes sometimes it is in hiding, but Kvayat Hashem has their davar that the honor of Hashem sometimes is to hide something, and we don't know the reasons, and we don't understand, and sometimes we're tested in our emunah, and things don't seem clear, and we think, as one of the members of our community wrote to me this week, she says, I daven so hard, and I see people who not keeping mitzvahs, and they seem to have such a beautiful mass and everything goes their way, and here am I trying so hard, and it seems like everything's going wrong in my life. Yeah, it does seem like that in some ways, and we wonder, Hashem, are you taking the right people? Like, what's going on? Chas v'shalom didn't even, to say that, but sometimes we do feel that, and it doesn't mean we're doing something wrong. It means Hashem is saying you have more capacity for emunah. You have more potential for emunah. And since you're in this world to grow your emunah, I'm giving you the chance, my beloved child, to grow your emunah. And even though it's hurting and even though it's hard, that's what we're in this world to do. And we sometimes experience miracles in one area in our life, and another area of life, we're like, where did the bottom fall out? Like, I don't know what's going on here, right? And that is the experience of life in this world. And that's how we grow. That's where we find the emunah. Okay.
Thank you. Have a good Shabbos, and thank you, and looking forward to next week.
Shabbos.
Okay.
Amen. Thank you so much for being here.
It's a pleasure.
Privilege. Such a zchus to be with you.
Amen.
Thank you for your
Same.
questions. Thank you for input. Bye, everyone.